Hi, this is Jo, and welcome to the next in the video tutorials for my floral collection of crochet patterns. And here you can see they're pretty. So what we're going to be working on today is the daffodil, perfect springtime flower. And depending on when and where you're watching this, I'm in South Wales in the UK, and it's coming up to the 1st of March, and we're having some beautiful spring weather at the minute, so it's really lovely to be crocheting spring flowers and to starting to feel a little bit more like the days are getting longer. I hope you're feeling that too. So we've already done the rose and the daisy. There's a sneak peek of what the next one will be, which is the tulip. And then today we're going to be doing the daffodil. So I'll just pop those to one side so we can have a look at the daffodil and what we need to make it. So it's quite straightforward, although it does look a bit more complicated than maybe it is, because we've got the little detailing on the petals, and we've also got, I like to call it a trumpet. I think that is the proper name for it, but this is fun to say anyway. So we've got that. The most complex thing I think about making this daffodil is the construction method with the trumpet and the base of the flower. So if I turn it over, you can see what we do is we work up the stem, which I'll show you how to do at the end. Work up the stem, and then we join the stem to the back of the flower, and then from there we join on these the petals. So you can see we've got missed stitches in between the petals there, where we join for the trumpet. So that's probably the most complex part of it, is where you just following the pattern to skip those bits there, skip these stitches here, but then we use them to join ready for the trumpet. And there's so much you can do with this pattern. I'm going to come on to some ideas for personalisation at the end. Obviously you can see here I've got this one in 2 colours, but the one we're going to be showing you today is also going to be in 2 colours, just because I think it makes it clearer, the joining techniques there. So that's the daffodil, that's what we're going to be doing today. It's nice and straightforward. So materials, what you're going to need today is obviously your crochet hook, and that is a 3.5mm crochet hook. For your stem, you're going to need something to give the flower support. Now what I use is a wooden dowel. It's 15 centimetres long, and what I do is I use a prim knitting mill to make this, it's like French knitting that you used to do when you were little with the little doll. But it means that I can just pop the dowel inside there, and it gives this really nice sturdy stem that to me makes it a little safer, I think, and a little bit more long lasting. So that's that. So that's for the stem. And then we'll need a tapestry needle, a pair of scissors, and some stitch markers. And that's it. You can, if you want to, use a little bit of stuffing in between the top of the stem and the flower base, just to give it a little bit of support, but you don't have to. This one has got some in, but only a tiny amount, so it's up to you. Play around and see what you prefer, whether you prefer it to have the stuffing in it or not. And that's it really, so we'll crack on with it. So I'm going to put everything to the side so we can just focus on what we need. So getting started, all we need is our 3.5mm crochet hook, our wool, best bit. So what I'm going to do, now the hard decision, do I do the trumpet in yellow and the petals in white, or the other way round? This is a tricky one, isn't it? Let's go with the petals in yellow and the trumpet in white. So that means we need to start with the yellow. So I'm going to need my crochet hook and my yarn. So I'm going to find the end, which is always easier said than done, don't you think? So there we go, there's the end. And what we're going to do is we're just going to get the yarn into position on your non-hook hand. So for me that's my left hand. And I've got my wool into position like that. It's wrapped around my little finger, under my ring finger, and over the first 2 fingers. So it looks like that from the other side, and that just means that you can pull it and it moves quite slowly, but you don't have to grip the yarn, which I used to do, and it gave me cramp a lot. So it's best if you can hold it in a more ergonomic way. So we make a loop like that with the wool. So I just went like that over the top. The short end of the yarn is lying on the top there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it there with my thumb, and then I'm going to put the hook through the centre of it. See if I can get it more close up. So my hook's going in there, and then what I'm going to do is, if you can see the hook, normally you would have it like that with the hook facing towards you, but when we're doing a magic ring we need to turn it away, so we're looking at the back of the hook there. And what we do is we grab the yarn that's over our finger there and we pull it through like that, and then once we get it to there we turn our hook clockwise towards us like that, and you can see the yarn crosses over there and makes a loop under the hook just there. And then what we do is we go back and we grab the yarn again like that, ordinarily over the top, and I'm just going to grab the hoop and pull it through. It can be tricky, so I'm just going to move my fingers up to there so I can manoeuvre the hook through a bit better. I can pull that tight, and then we know it's working. If I can pull it there and I can pull it there, then that we know the magic ring is working. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to work in all our stitches now into the centre of the magic circle there. And the important thing is that when you put your hook into the centre, you get both strands of the hoop itself and the tail end of the wool there. They're both over your hook, so it looks like you've got 3 hoops on your hook. Okay. And what we're going to do, into the centre of the magic hoop, we're going to do 6 double crochets. That's UK terms. If you are in America, that is a single crochet. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 6 in there. So we've put our hook into the centre of the circle. I'm just going to yarn over, so it looks like I've got 4 hoops on my hook. And then I'm going to pull the crochet hook back through the 2 strands of the magic ring. So I've now got 2 hoops on my hook. And then I'm going to yarn over again. I'm going to pull through both hoops straight back down to 1 hoop on the hook. So that's 1 double crochet. And then I'm going to pop my hook in again. So again, it looks like I've got 3 hoops on my hook. And then yarn over and pull my hook back out there. So it looks like I've got 2. And then yarn over and through 2. So that's 1, 2 stitches. So in the magic ring, yarn over, back through, yarn over through the 2. 1, 2, 3, stitch 4, and then yarn over through 2, back down to 1 hoop. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches, got 2 more to go, yarn over through those 2, yarn over through those 2. If you're new to crocheting using a magic ring, what I would do is after every stitch just pull your circle just to check that it still is, you still are able to pull it tighter and looser. If you can't pull it, then at some point you haven't got your hook under both strands and you will need to do it again, otherwise the magic ring won't work. So just be aware of that. So just keep checking by just pulling the short strand. You see the circle is shrinking, well that means my magic ring is working. So I've got 1 more stitch to do in the centre, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches, and I'm just going to pull that. I'm not pulling it tight at the minute, I'm just pulling it closed. So there's that. Now what you can do here is, if you want to use a stitch marker, what I would do is put my stitch marker around both legs of the hoop on the hook like that, so it's kind of hanging just under the hook. Let me use a different colour so you can see it a bit clearer. Like that. So it's under both legs of the hoop that's on the hook, like that, and then just close it up. And then that will become the top of the first stitch of the next round. Now, I like stitch markers, but not so much for this. So what I tend to do is have a little scrap of different coloured yarn, and I just put it there like that, just under, there's my working yarn, and I just put it just under it, like that, so that I can see the gap. And I think just for me that works better for me, but you can use whichever method you want. So what we need to do on this one is we're going to increase into every stitch all the way around. Now all that means is we do 2 double crochets or single crochets into every stitch on the round below. So we're going to make sure we get both hoops of the double crochet. The first one of the round can often be a bit tricky, so I just got both legs of the loop on. And that's why I don't pull the magic ring completely tight at the beginning, because sometimes it can pull the top of that first stitch under the end of the last stitch and it can hide it. So I'm just going to go yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and then into the same stitch again for one more. So when you get to the end of this round, you should have 12 double or single crochets. So we've done 2 there, so into the next stitch, 1, 2, and next same stitch, through 2, through 2, and that's our 4th stitch. So this will be stitch 5, and then in the same stitch again for stitch number 6. So all you need to do is just keep going, 2 stitches in the next 3 double crochets, and by the end of that you'll be back to the beginning with your stitch marker or your bit of wool. You should have 12 stitches. So there we are, back to the beginning, and I've got 12. So this is why I prefer the wool to a stitch marker, because you can just pull it out. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my tail end of the magic ring and I'm going to pull it as tight as I can without breaking the wool. And what you need to do is move it in all different directions, because you're pulling it through those first 6 stitches you did to close the gap. Oop, there we go. That got it. So that is really nice and tightly closed now. There you go, really nicely tightly closed. So with this flower, your tension isn't really massively crucial to this project, because it's not like we're going to put any stuffing into it or anything like that. So if it's not completely tight, then it doesn't matter. Just do your natural tension of crochet. I'd say probably not too loose, but not too bad. So that's what we're going to do there. So that's that first round. So round 2 finished, and we've got 12 stitches at the end of that round. So what we're going to do now is we are going to do 1 double crochet in the next stitch. So 1 double crochet there, just an ordinary double crochet, and I've put my strand of wool back in place for the start of this round. And then in the next stitch I'm going to do 2 stitches, so 2 double crochets, 1, 2. So next stitch 1, and in the next stitch 2. So it's 1 stitch, increase, 1 stitch, increase, all the way around. And when you get back to your marker at the beginning, you should have 18 stitches. So that's the end of round 3, and we've got 18 stitches. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So 1 in that one, 1 and 2. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want this to look like a circle. And if we increase at the same point on every round, it will make more of a hexagon than a circle. And I want to keep this as a circle shape, so I've just done 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches to move us around a bit for our next increase. So I'm going to put my stitch marker wool back in there, and on this round we're going to increase up to 24 stitches. So all that means is we're going to do 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So 1, 2, and then we're going to increase in the next stitch. 1, 2. So 1 in the next one, 1 in the next one, and increase in the next one. And you can repeat that all the way back round to the beginning, a total of 6 times, including the 2 we've just done. So I've got 4 more times to do, and we should have 24 stitches. So I'm going to carry on, and I'll see you back at the beginning. the end of round 4, 24 double crochets, and you see it is starting to look a little bit more like a hexagon. So I'm going to do 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches, in each of the next 2 stitches, to try and break that up a little bit. And then in the next stitch, in the next round, round 5, what we're going to do now is we're going to start to create these spaces, and then we're going to go on to work the petals. So what we need to do is we need to do chain 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 chains, and then we're going to skip the next 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, and then in the next stitch, so in the 4th stitch along, skip 1, 2, 3, and then in that stitch we're just going to do 1 double crochet, like that. So we will have there 3 skipped double crochet stitches. So 1, 2, 3, skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and then double crochet into the 4th stitch, ordinary double crochet, and then my wool is fighting me. And then 1, 2, 3, skip those 3, and then into the 4th for an ordinary double crochet, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, into the 4th for an ordinary double crochet, and then 1, 2, 3, skip 3, 3, and then you should be back to that last double crochet on the previous round. And all we're going to do is we're going to do a slip stitch, so 1, 2, 3, into that one there, yarn over, back through all the hoops, so you go straight back down to 1. And that there then is I can take my bit of wool out now, and that gives us all of the 6 gaps for the petals. And what it means is that when we come to join the trumpet, it's those missed stitches, those 3 missed stitches there, that we're going to be joining the trumpet to. So you can see now that is like that. So the petals then go into this bit, and the trumpet will join onto those stitches there. Okay, so we're going to do the petals now. So that's the base of the flower done. So we got up to 24 stitches in the round, and then we've now done 3 chains, skipped 3 stitches, double crochet in the next stitch, and repeated that all the way around. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 petal spaces to give you 6 petals. So the pattern for the petals is repeated in each of the chain 3 gaps. So what we're going to be doing is working into that gap there, not into the stitches below, because like I said, that's where we're going to join the trumpet when we come to do the trumpet in a second. So what we are going to be doing is putting our hook into that gap there where my finger's poking out. So it's just going in like that. So when we put our hook in, we end up with the whole of those 3 chains on top of our hook. We're not putting it through the 3 chains, we're not putting it through the tops of those stitches. It's going in that big gap there, so you can see that there. And this follows a nice pattern that's repeated in each one, and all we're going to do is we're going to create this shape by starting with the smallest stitch and working up to the biggest, and then just there we do what's called a picot stitch, which I'll show you, and then we come back down the stitches back to the smallest, and that is how you create that shape. So we're going to start there with a slip stitch into the chain 3 space like that, and then we're going to pop our hook through, and we're going to do a double crochet, and then as you go along you're just going to need to pull the stitches to the right of the chain 3 space so they don't spread out too much. So that's a double crochet, and now we're going to do the next size up, which is a half treble. So yarn over into the space, yarn over back out, and then yarn over through all 3 hoops. And I've just pulled it to the right again. Next size up is a treble, so yarn over into the space, yarn over back out, yarn over through 2, and yarn over through 2. And then next one is a double treble, so you wrap your yarn around your hook twice before popping your hook into the space, yarn over back out of the chain space, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. And then the last one is a treble treble, or a triple treble, and you wrap your yarn around your hook 3 times before you pop your hook into the chain space. You go like that, and then you go yarn over, back out, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and yarn over through 2. And then I've just pulled it back to the right again, so you can see that nice incline of the stitch sizes there. Now what we're going to do is create this little lump at the end. It reminds me of a sheriff's badge. You see in cowboys and stuff. So that's what we're going to do here, is create that little, at the end, tuft maybe. So what we're going to do here is a chain 3 picot, and there are other sizes. You can do 2 chains or 1 or even bigger, but for this one it's going to be 3. So don't always assume that when you see it written down as a picot that it's going to be 3 chains. Read the instructions and the notes in the pattern that you're following. So we've got 1, 2, 3. And what we do then is we take our hook back down to the first of the 3 chains that we did. So there's 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to put my hook under that loop there. So I've got 2 hoops on my hook. And I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to go through both of them to do a slip stitch. And that creates that little tuft. And then nice and straightforwardly, all we've got to do now is we've got to come back down the size stitches on the other side. So we're going to start with the biggest, which is the treble treble. So round your yarn, wrap your yarn around 3 times and then into the space. Then 1, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and yarn over through 2. So that gives you that one. Then wrap around twice for the double treble, into the chain space, yarn over, back out, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. So we've got the treble treble, the double treble, so the next one, treble. So yarn over once, into the chain space, yarn over again, back out, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. I'm just going to pull that a little way to the right so it's all nicely together. Next size down, half treble, so into the space, yarn over, back out, yarn over through all 3. And then in the last bit, no yarn over, just straight into the space, yarn over, back out, yarn over through 2 for a double crochet, and then our last one is the slip stitch, so straight in, yarn over, through, and straight through the hoop on the hook for a slip stitch, and that's your first petal. So you can see there that picot stitch there, creating that little tuft at the end to give the petal a little. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can just do the crochet stitches and not do that. Just go straight on to another treble treble, or just do 1 treble treble in the middle. But it's entirely up to you. Have a play around and see which you prefer doing. But that just gives you a nice little effect onto the top of the stitch. So then with that then you're just going to do exactly the same pattern there that we've just done in each of the remaining 5 petal spaces. So at the end you're going to have 6 petals. So we'll do the next one. So you're going to find the next chain 3 space, pop your hook in, starting with a slip stitch straight through, and then put your hook in again, yarn over, back out, yarn over through 2. So that's our double crochet. Yarn over for a half treble, here we go, yarn over, back out, yarn over through all 3. Next one, treble, yarn over into space, yarn over, back out, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Double treble next, so that's yarn over twice, into the space, yarn over, back out the space, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and yarn over through 2. So double treble now, treble treble, 2, 3, in the space, yarn over, back out, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. I'm just going to pull it that way a little bit. And then we're going to do the picot stitch again. So it's 1, 2, 3. And then what you're going to do is grab the first chain furthest away from your hook, yarn over, through, and through for a slip stitch to create that lump there. Right, another treble treble. So we've got yarn wrapped around 3 times, yarn over, back out of the space, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Double treble next. Remember we're coming down the sizes now. Yarn over, back out, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and yarn over through 2. Next one is an ordinary treble. So we've got yarn over into the space, yarn over back out, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Next one, half treble, yarn over back out, yarn over through all 3, double crochet next, so yarn over into the space, yarn over back out, yarn over through 2, and the next one, the last one, ordinary slip stitch. There you go. So that's your petals there. So that's 2 done. So we need to do 4 more in the remaining 4 chain spaces. So don't forget you're going up the size of the stitches on that side and then coming down the size of the stitches on that side with the picot stitch, chain 3 picot stitch in the middle. Okay, so keep going and I'll see you back around at the beginning. That's the slip stitch on the last petal. So we've got all 6 petals now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip the yellow, like that, and I'm just going to pull that straight through there. I'm not going to do a chain or anything like that. Now what you can do here is you can finish off this part of the petal in any way that you choose really. It's not, I mean you can do the invisible finish if you want, which we're going to do on the stem, but if you don't want to, you don't have to at all. So I'm just going to thread my needle there, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to pop it through the top of the stitch below, like that, just to, so you can see, there's that space there, that's where I'm putting it, straight through there, and then I'm just going to feed it down under the backs of some of these stitches, just to secure it and keep it out of the way. And then all I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tie that in a knot with the centre tail of wool, the yarn there, like that, to keep it nice and safe and secure. Because I'm not going to cut these ends because they can even act as a little bit of padding at the back of the stem, because that is that. So on the back is where the top of the stem is going to join, so you can't see that. So that's going to go over the top of there with the stem, so you can't see that bit there. So that will just, we can just tuck that in when we do the stem. So we're going to go on to do the trumpet part of the daffodil now. So you need your colour, whether you're going to keep with the same colour or you're going to change colour like I am doing. So all we need to do first of all is to just do a standard slip stitch. So I'm just going to do that over there, and then I'm going to grab the yarn up the middle like that to make a slip stitch, pop it on my hook. And what we're going to do is we're going to join using a slip stitch with our new colour to the first of one of these groups of 3 stitches. So where we've done our petals, we've got these 3 skipped stitches at the back there. So what we're going to do is we're going to join with a slip stitch to the first of the 3. It doesn't really matter if it's not the first, but I'm very rigorous and it just makes sense for it to be the first. So I'm going to put my hook under both legs of the top of that stitch there. As you can see, it looks like I've got, separate that out so you can see 3 loops on my hook, and then all I'm going to do is a slip stitch. So yarn over, through and through to do a slip stitch. I'm just going to pull that tight. And now if you want to, you can do a 1 chain here and then carry on working, or you could just go straight into a double crochet there. But one of the things you do need to do is pull that slip stitch nice and tight so it doesn't cause any kind of bulges or anything at the bottom there when you're working on it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work 1 stitch into each of the 3 skip stitches between the petals. So by the end of this round, because we've got 3 stitches, 6 gaps, you should have 18 stitches round. So I'm just going to go straight into that first one and do an ordinary double crochet. So that's 1, and you should have kind of the wrong side of your work looking at you at the minute, and I tend to fold down the petals as I'm going just to make it a bit easier to work into. So there's 1, into the next one, 2, 3, and then I'm just going to jump without doing any chains or anything, find the first of the 3 skipped stitches there, 1, 2, 3, so that's 6, and then to the next chain space there. It's a bit like a, if anybody watched Stranger Things, it's a bit like a demogorgon at this point. So we've got 1, 2, 3 there, so I'm just going to pop, hook under the first of the 3. You might find that as you jump into the next space, this loop on your hook gets a bit loose, so just pull it a little tighter because you don't want a big gap between any stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then next one we've got 1, 2, 3 there, 1, 2, 3. That's not me that needs oiling, it's the hook and the yarn rubbing. Although I probably do need oiling as well. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we've got 1 space left to do. 1, 2, 3. So we're back round to the beginning. You should have 18 stitches, and you can see now the trumpet really starting already to take shape. And what we're going to do is I'm going to not worry about that in there for a second, and I'm going to sort that out when we're finished. I'm just going to kind of tuck it out of the way into the middle. So what we need to do now is we're going to carry on working around this with using a stitch marker to keep our first stitch of the round marked out. So I'm just popping my yarn into there so that I can see where it is, because it's nice and green. It's stands out nicely against the white. So what you've got to be careful here is, because we started there with that slip stitch, is that when you work into the first stitch, you're working into the first stitch and not the slip stitch. We skip the slip stitch, so I'm just going to go under both legs of that next stitch, and all we're going to do in this round is we're going to do 1 double crochet, oops, there we go, 1 double crochet in each stitch round. So you should have 18 stitches, so it's just 1 in each. Just doing 1 double crochet in each stitch. And back to my little bit of wool. So I'm going to take that out and pop it back there again, and then round 3 is just to do the same again. So lulling you in with a false sense of security. So just 1 in each stitch all the way around for another 18 stitches. There we are, there's round 3 done, and you can see now we're working up. And when we did the first round, when we joined to the spaces between the petals, it can feel a little bit weird working with the wrong side facing it, but it makes sense once you've got going a few rows that you want the neater side of your work on the outside rather than the other side. Not that it looks awful, it's just that this side is the neater side. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab my stitch marker yarn, pop it in under the working yarn again, like that, ready for the next round. And in this round we're going to decrease because we want to have a little shape to our trumpet there. We don't just want it to come all the way up without any shaping. So what we're going to do is we're going to decrease every other stitch to bring us down to 12 stitches. Remember, at the minute we're at 18, so we're going to do a ordinary double crochet in the next stitch, and then we're going to decrease over the next 2. Now you can either do a standard decrease, which is where you put your yarn into the next stitch, yarn over and pull it through so you've got 2 hoops on your hook, and then before you finish off the stitch, put your hook under the top of the next stitch so it looks like you've got 4 hoops on your hook, yarn over back through, and then yarn over through all 3 at once, and it creates that shape there. So you can do that, nothing wrong with that at all. Yarn has decided to explode like helium. All the classics coming out today, look. So you could do it like that if you wanted to, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. So that's one way of doing it, like that. But the other way that you can do it is called an invisible decrease. And sometimes I don't find it is invisible, but try them both and see which one you prefer the look of. It's not, just find the one that suits you. So what you do is you put your hook under the front loop of the next double crochet, like that, and then you don't do anything yet, and you put your hook straight under the next front loop only of the double crochet there. So you've got the 2 front loop onlys of the 2 double crochet stitches that you want to bring into one. So let me show you again. So under the front loop only there, like that, and then straight under the front loop only of the next stitch there, so it looks like you've got 3 hoops on your hook, and then you go yarn over through those 2 like that, and then yarn over through those 2, so it creates that kind of shape instead. Okay, so have a play and see which one you prefer, and both are brilliant. You don't need to, neither of them are wrong. So then what I'm going to do is double crochet in the next stitch, like that, and then we're going to do another decrease, so up under the front loop, up under the next front loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and you're just going to keep doing that all the way around, 1 double crochet and then decrease all the way around back to your marker, and you should have 12 stitches. Right, so that's row 4 done, or round 4 rather. We're back at the beginning. And all I'm going to do before we carry on is with this white end from the beginning, where we join the white yarn to the spaces in between the petals. I'm just going to put that so I don't lose it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to feed it through to the bottom there. And then that will give me the same then. It will just sit between the back of the flower and the stem to give it a little bit more padding there. But if I leave it any longer, it can be tricky to get the needle in there, so it just is easier to do it at that point. So I'm going to pop that back on my hook. So that was row 4, round 4. So what we do now is 5, 6, 7, 8. No, I'm not talking about steps, if you're that old to remember. All we do is we do 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 rounds of just doing 1 double crochet in each stitch. So what I do is just work around 1 double crochet in each stitch, so you should have 12 stitches. This is the last stitch of round 5 before I start round 6, and you could move the yarn up into the next round, but I leave it there so that I can count back how many rounds I've done. So that's 5, so I'm going to continue with 6, 7, 8, and I'll see you back. So I'm back round to the beginning after having done rounds 5 to 8, and this is what I was meaning when I was saying about leaving the marker there. It's because you can see the yarn there is marking out really clearly the first round where I started on round 5. So I know that I need 4 rounds on top of it. So we've got round 1 there, 2, 3, 4. So I know I've done enough now. So what we need to do is run to our last round, which is to create these at the end. And the way we do that is in the next stitch we do 5 half trebles. So yarn over into the stitch, yarn over, back out, yarn over, draw 3. So just 5 ordinary half trebles, 3, 4, 5, like that. And then in the next stitch you do a slip stitch. So yarn over, back out, straight through down to 1 loop. And then in the next one, 5 half trebles, and then in the next one, a slip stitch. So 3, 4, 5, and then a slip stitch. So just repeat that all the way around, back to the start of the round. So that's the last of the 5 half trebles. So I'm just going to do my final slip stitch into that stitch there, to the last double crochet from the previous round, and then I'm just going to snip that and put it through like that, and then grab my my little stitch marker there, and then all I'm going to do is just secure that end like that, so you can see the gap here. So that's where I'm just going to take my yarn, is into that gap, so it's kind of in between the last double crochet on the previous round and the first of the 5 half trebles in that stitch. It just keeps it down and out of the way. So then what I can do is on the back then is I can feed this yarn through the 5 half trebles. You want it to look fairly neat, because remember this is going to be the bit that is seen. So I'm just going to pop it back out the other side now, and then I can feed it back under on this side, if it will let me. I don't know if you can tell, but the sun's just come out. It feels quite fitting when making this. So that's that. So you shouldn't be able to see that it's there, it shouldn't look any different from the others. And then all we're going to do is, well, what you could do, what I would do, is just going to rethread it, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it back to the middle again, like this. Just remember that the more you do like this, the safer, more secure your work is. So I'm just going to feed the yarn down the centre of the trumpet. Again, just being careful that it's not visible for when people are looking at it. And I'm just feeding it down like this, in and out between the different stitches, so it looks like it's just part of the fabric of the trumpet. It's not anything standing out. But again, like I say, might seem like a bit of a palaver, but the more you do this, the safer your work is. And then once you've got down to the bottom, then you can bring it out in the bottom of your flower there, and then you've got all your 4 ends there together. I'm just going to tie them in just a simple knot, and then those 4 then will be secure and in the back of the flower, and your work is nice and secure. And I mean, I could probably see it if I really looked, but I think I would have to really look to be able to see it. So that's the top of the flower done. Now, personally, I like the ends curling up a little bit because I think that's what real flowers look like. They don't look pristine, but you could, if you wanted to, steam them a little bit to make them flatten, or just put some starch spray on it on the ends of the petals just to try and make them stay flatter if that's what you would prefer, but you don't have to do that. So that's the actual flower part done. So we're going to go back to the stem. So remember we had this stem covering that I made using a prim knitting mill, so like that. This loose strand here has been fed up from sewing the bottom part together so that the stick doesn't pop out the end. So I choose to use this way just because I think it's the neatest and most secure to give the back of the stem as much support as possible. But there are lots of other options that you could do. You don't have to join a stem at all. I mean, you could have like chains attaching a load of daffodils all different colours and make them into like some beautiful spring bunting, or just use the flowers and attach them onto a wreath for a beautiful spring wreath. You could attach them onto a hair bobble, as I call them. Does everybody call them that? And put it in your hair. You could make a lovely... I've seen people on TikTok using a lot finer wool, almost like a cotton yarn, really fine, to make little daffodils and adding them onto a chain and then wrapping it in the hair. And if that's your thing, it looks really pretty. Personally, I'm not girly enough for that, but it looks really pretty on the people that it suits. But yeah, it looks really nice. So there's lots of things that you could do with it that don't require a stem, but if you do want to pop on a stem, try and think about what type of stem you're going to use and how secure and sturdy you want it to be, which is why I like to use the wooden dowels. You can get metal floristry wire that's about double the length of that, and it's green. And what you do is you kind of fold it in half so it's the same length as this, and then you stick it with hot glue onto the back of the thing. Sorry, no, you do the circle on the back of the thing without the stem. You just do a flat circle and then feed the wire into the centre of the circle and then glue it there, and then you wrap the wire with wool using glue. Now, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Personally, I try and avoid using glue wherever possible, just because I just think the less stuff you can put into it, the better. Like your chemicals and whatever. So this is why I use the dowel and the French knitting, is because there's no glue. Don't need to use any glue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my dowel. I'm going to get to the middle of the 4 loops that are left from the French knitting. So you can see there 4 loops there, and I'm going to pop the dowel in down the middle of it. I've also used bigger dowels than this with this same French knitting that are 30 centimetres tall, and they're thicker, and that fits nicely as well. But you can see the wood, not through the trees, but you can see the wood through the French knitting then. But it's up to you, whatever you prefer. I mean, there's no, like I said, there's no right or wrong. It's what suits you. I'm just making sure that that end isn't caught anywhere along and that it's just flowing nicely out to the top. So there we go. So that's that in there now. So I'm going to snip this yarn off here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it a little bit and then snip it fairly close to the stem, and then that end will disappear into the stem. So all we need to do now is we need to get that nice and tight up there like that, and then we're going to undo the French knitting back to the top of the doweling, just so you can see the top of the doweling. There's that bit of yarn I just cut, so you can see the top of the doweling peeking through. Now this is where you will need stitch markers rather than the different colour wool. So what you've got to do is pop your stitch marker up through the loop, lock it in, and just pop a stitch marker in each of the 4 loops of the French knitting. I've tried doing the stems lots of different ways, and you could just do, I used to do, until I got the knitting mill, I used to do just a double crocheted, chained long enough for the stem, and then just did a couple of rows of double crochet and then sewed it together and wrapped it around the stem, but that can be a bit thick and also a lot more time consuming than doing it like this. So it just depends on what you are doing. If you're just making a few of these just to make your own bouquet, then doing it like this, doing it in a way that takes a bit more time, it's up to you. So we've got our 4 stitch markers in our 4 ends. So what we need to do is we're going to find the one where the wool is actually joined, which is that one. I'm going to pop a hook in there, but I'm leaving the stitch marker. But what I'm going to do is going to pop it off, and I'm going to pop it around both legs of the hoop that's on the hook, like that, like we did before, and just lock that in there so that it more clearly marks the first stitch of the hoop round. So in the next loop here, we're going to do 2 double crochets because we want to get up to 6 stitches. So we've got 1, 2, like that, and then once you've done the stitch you can pop out the stitch marker, and then in the next one just 1, so that would be our 3rd stitch, and we can pop that one out, and then in the next one 4, 5, and I can pop that stitch marker out. I'm just going to keep it in my hand a second. So that's the top of the first stitch. We've got 5 stitches around, so what we need to do is do our last stitch. If you can see, there's the top of the stitch there. What I want to do is work my hook into that leg there. So there's the top of the stitch, and there's the leg of the stitch underneath it, and that's where I'm going to put my hook, so ignore that little bit there. So it's that loop there. So I'm going to go round just under that leg there. So I'm not going under that, I'm going under the leg below it, and I'm just going to do, that'll be my 6th double crochet. So I'm going to pop the hook off, and I can go back to my little bit of wool now. Although it's green, it doesn't stand out as much now. Sad face, but there we go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to increase in every stitch. We're going to do 2 double crochets in every stitch until we've got 12. So I'll meet you back at the beginning of the round. So we finished that round to bring us up to having 12 double crochet stitches. So what we need to do now is I'm going to pop my yarn in to mark the beginning of this round, and I'm just going to do 1 double crochet in the first stitch, so that's 1, and then 2 double crochets in the next stitch, 1, 2. I'm going to repeat that 5 more times, 6 times in total. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, all the way round until we're back to the beginning with 18 stitches. So that's to the end of that round, and we've got 18 stitches now. So technically that's it now for the stem. That's just going to get sewn onto the back there. You could, if you wanted to, give it a slightly different edging. So what I've done on this one is I've done slip stitch in the next stitch and then a chain, and then slip stitch in the next stitch, chain, to create that textured edge in there. So it gives it a bit more of a fanciness than it has just being plain. You could, if you wanted to, take it up to 24 stitches so that you're sewing it in all of the stitches all the way around. So you could do one more round of increasing. So you do double crochet, 2 double crochets all the way around to get 24 stitches if you wanted a bigger stem, or you could just keep it at 18 stitches like that, and then join it there, which is what I'm going to do now. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an invisible decrease, which if you haven't seen it before is a really fantastic way of finishing off a piece of work. So normally you would do a slip stitch in the next stitch and then a chain and then pull the yarn through, but it can be quite tricky when you're joining or just looking at the finish to see which stitches are which. So for me personally anyway, so what you do is you just pull your yarn straight through that stitch. You don't do anything else, you just pull it straight through on your last stitch, and then all you do is you get your needle and you do an invisible decrease. So what you do is, that's the next stitch, we're going to skip that one and we're going to put the needle under both legs of the next stitch after that. So there's the one we skipped, that's the one we've worked in, that's the skipped one, that's the one we're going through. And what we're doing is we're recreating the top of a stitch so that it doesn't look like a finish, it looks just like another top of a stitch. So what we need to do is create that V shape on the top. So there's one leg of the V. So what we've got to do is bring this one back down here. So all you do is you pop your needle down in the top of that stitch that you've just done, and the last double crochet that you did on that round, and then you pull it a little tight but not too tight, and then you can see there, that's the top of the stitch that we've just recreated. So what we're going to do then is I'm just going to, just to secure it, I'm just going to find the back of the stitch below there, pop the needle under that, and I'm just going to pop the needle in that loop just to make a little knot to try and secure it a little bit. So you don't want to, again, we're not pulling it too tight, we just want it like that, and then that's going to allow us then to sew it on to the back of the flower. So all we're going to do, and again when you're sewing it on, how you sew it on is up to you. Different ways of sewing it on will have different finished looks. So what you can do is just sew in the back loop only like that. So instead of going under both legs of the top of a stitch like that, you could just go into the back loop only, and then that will leave the front loop onlys all the way round to create a little bit of texture. What you've got to be careful with when you're joining this is that you don't want to take your hook too far through, so your needle, so that you can see the green through the centre of the daffodil. So you've got to be a little bit careful where you put your hook. So if you look at the backs of the stitches here, what I tend to do is try and aim for these horizontal bars of yarn there. I try and work it so that I'm sewing into them rather than maybe going around a stitch like that, to try and work into those ones there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work into the back loop only so you can see what it looks like, and I'm just going to go take my needle up that back loop only there like that, and then I'm going to pop my needle up under that horizontal bar of a stitch there, and then up under the back loop only there, and then find the horizontal bar of the next stitch there and just pull that through, and then up there, find the next horizontal bar of the next stitch. There we go. It can be a bit fiddly, especially if your crocheting is quite tight, so you're going to go up there. But if you want to try something different, you don't want to do it like this, then just have a play around. Like I said, just try different things and see which one works for you. There we go. So much left, maybe a third left. What I want to do is to get these ends and pop them, if possible, all into there, just to give the back of the flower a bit more of a shape. So that's all gone in there nicely. So now I've done that. So when I'm sewing, I tend to put my finger in the flower trumpet, so to speak, to keep it, so that I can keep control of it from the other side. I'm just going to finish off sewing around now. And there we are, right back to the beginning now. So that's all sewn nice and neatly into place. Now, as it is, that will allow you to position the head of the daffodil in different ways. If you wanted to secure it more into place, then what you could do is what I've done here, which is to sew the outside of the back of the stem into the stem itself a bit further down to keep the daffodil facing that way. So you can see there, it's sewn in just there from the back of the stem into the stem itself to keep it more in place. So you can't move the daffodil head around so much, it's kind of sewn into that place. Or if you wanted to, you could leave it just like that, and then the daffodil can be more mobile depending on what you want. Okay, but that's the flower finished. So all we need to do now is to just sew in our ends. So just going to do that, just to tie that off a little bit, just pull that nice and tight there. So you can see, because I've gone into the back loop only, it's left that front loop only to create that nice ridge all the way around, so it looks quite nice. So there's loads of different ways that you can work with it, and then what we can do here is I'm just going to work that green thread down to there so that it's coming out further down, and then if you wanted to, you could feed this through a bit more so that it's very well secure in place, which is what I tend to do just because prefer to be on the safe side. And then that's fed through that way. So we put the needle out, and I'm going to grab this yarn here, I'm going to pull it a little bit and cut the yarn near to the stem, and then the end disappears then into the bit. Okay, so there you go. So like I said, lots of different things you can do with that. Obviously we've got different colours, so we've got whites, oranges, yellows, all different types of colours that you could use. One thing that I have done in the past and works beautifully is on the trumpet, if you hold two strands of wool together, one being either a double knit weight like this, or even a 4-ply fine yarn, and hold it with a fluffy mohair type yarn, and it gives this really lovely kind of furriness to the flower. But some flowers do have that, so it looks really nice, and it works really well. Or you could just do it around this bit here, add in a fluffier wool. But yeah, obviously it doesn't have to be realistic colours to daffodils. You could use whatever colours you want. If you want rainbow ones or pink ones or whatever it is you want, just do whatever. Do whatever to make it yours and to suit your home or whoever you're making them for. But yeah, it's just having a play. Then the leaf, if you want to add a leaf on, that's in a separate pattern, separate YouTube tutorial in this playlist. So you can have a look at doing the leaf, or you could leave it without, it's entirely up to you. But this is the long leaf that looks much more like a realistic daffodil leaf, but then it's kind of wrapped around at the bottom, so the stem comes out of it like a real daffodil. So that's things you can try. Like I said, you could just make the flower without doing the stem and then attach it to a hair clip or a brooch or whatever it is that you want to do. You can make the trumpet a bit shorter, you don't have to do so many rounds. Like this one is a lot less rounds, so you can play with that. You could decrease even more, so instead of just going down to 12 stitches like we did there, you could go even down to 6, and then that would make that flare out even more at the end. Yeah, there's so much you could do with it. I think it would look really lovely in one of the chenille type wools, the really thick chunky chenille wools, and you could make it almost like a cuddly cushiony type thing. Yeah, there's so much you could do with it. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you make lots of lovely daffodils that make lots of lovely people smile. If you remember, tag me in anything that you make on social media, Facebook, Pinterest, so that I can see what you do. Apart from that, please enjoy. Any questions, any comments, put them in the section below, and I hope you get to make lots and lots of lovely flowers. Thank you. Bye.